Continuing on our unofficial theme here of relative lack of substantive action by U.S. trade leadership, let's head over to the WTO. Over 80 members of the Joint Statement Initiative, JSI, on electronic commerce released what's called a stabilized text last Friday, notably without sponsorship from the United States. What should listeners know about the JSI and this recent agreement?
Well, I would say serious missed opportunity by the United States. Missed opportunity to show leadership, missed opportunity to get aboard what I think is going to be an important train and sending mixed signals about our digital policy. That said, the document's a compromise. It's not everybody to begin with. The term Joint Statement Initiative refers essentially to plurilateral negotiations. This is a big one. There's about 90 countries participating in it, most of whom signed this particular text. And the initial idea was to develop a comprehensive set of digital rules for covering digital trade. This text does not do that. And so the United States, I think, is right to be disappointed. On the other hand, this is, I think, maybe a classic case of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. It does not contain everything we want, but it does contain a lot of good stuff. And my advice to the U.S. government would be, take half the loaf, and it probably is only half the loaf, take the half loaf, then go back, and have another negotiation for the other half. If you don't take the first half, you're abdicating leadership and you're just leaving it to other people to run the digital trade game according to their rules rather than our rules. That said, there's nothing in the JSA about cross-border data flows or data localization, which are key elements for the United States, which need to be there. And the JSI talks kind of put that one in the back burner fairly quickly because both of those will be the hardest to solve. But I think at this point, suggesting the agreement is flawed because that's not there is expecting more than can be delivered right now. They also failed to permanently extend the e-commerce customs moratorium, which in the short run doesn't make any difference because it's been extended for 2 years anyway as a result of the last WTO ministerial in February. But not extending it permanently, at least for these countries, is a big disappointment. I think the U.S. is right to be disappointed about that. But again, it's one of a number of elements. I just think the fact that we're not there, first of all, weakens the agreement. It weakens the significance of the agreement because we're a major player in the digital trade space. And it abdicates our leadership in trying to get rules that are the kinds of rules that will suit the digital economy that we would like to see.
I think Bill's right here. I would only add the comment that Ronald Reagan might make. He quipped that personnel is policy. And I note that in Geneva, we think the policy forum, that is the World Trade Organization, is important enough to the United States in its international economic engagement that we post a deputy secretary. USTR is unusual because it has 3 deputies, one of whom, with the rank of ambassador, is the head of our mission to the WTO in Geneva. And that's a pretty big investment for the country to make. And I'd just ask, what in the world was that organization, that high-level, highly compensated organization doing that was more important than this digital economy agreement? I mean, given the significance of it to the U.S. economy, given the fact that we invented the digital economy, our companies are the leaders in this area. We have a tremendous amount at stake. What in the world were you working on that was so important that it took you away from this? I mean, this is totally irresponsible. I can't imagine doing anything like that. And it's not as if we didn't have the resources there. These are permanent positions that we permanently staff. I'm just curious about what you thought was more important on a day-to-day basis than exercising American leadership on this key issue. I'm embarrassed.
Good rant, Scott.
I try to come up with one once in a while. This one just feels wrong. It's like, take the politics out of it. Just look at the share of the economy and the growth of that sector and the importance to America. What are you working on? What are you doing there? I mean, what did you come to work for in the morning that was more important than leading on this issue? I can't think of anything. Maybe there's a good answer, and maybe we'll hear it from one of our all-knowing and wise listeners. But I'm mystified.
Well, there is a difference of view, apparently, certainly in the broader business community, but apparently also in the administration on exactly what our digital policy will be. We've already talked in the past about our USTR's retreat on digital policy and the fact that did not appear to have been widely vetted or even agreed to inside the administration. I think they're still suffering from a schizophrenia on the question. And the response has been, more often than not, to do nothing. Go back to IPEF last November when they pulled the plug on a digital agreement there, I think due to political opposition from, actually in that case, from the left. But when you're trapped between the business community on this and the progressive community on this issue, the USTR response has been to sort of retreat and twiddle their thumbs, which is disappointing because there's a lot of missed opportunities here. And Scott is quite right. If we're not leading on this particular issue, we're going to be following people whose interests are very different from ours. And that's going to come back and bite us in the long run.